Milton Friedman once said, "There is one and only one social responsibility for business. Engage in activities designed to increase its profits." Now, this statement, in essence, sums up, on a global level, the business world in which you and I have operated, and to an extent, still operate in today. We live in a market society, as defined by Malcolm Gladwell, if you're familiar with the concepts, in which everything tends to have a price and profit tends to take priority over everything else. Whether it be the social responsibility of firms, whether it be human rights, or the planet we live on, you name it, profit is more important. Needless to say, this business model has built up quite a reputation over the years, coming from the public, which has served to give a public perception that business is not a solution to social issues we face, but rather the problem. Now, the thing that goes overlooked in the eyes of the public far too often is the inherent corporate social responsibility incorporated into the infrastructure of these companies, as well as their philanthropic aspects. In the United States alone, last year, $53 billion were donated by corporations in monetary funds. That's a 2.7 increase from 2012, and the top two, Wells Fargo and Walmart, donated a combined $1.4 billion. To put that into perspective, that's two corporations from one country donating the entire GDP of Greenland in just 1 year. Now, if you and I are in any way like-minded, we think that even if this public perception of evil business were to be entirely justified, it would still be the wrong approach, rather the polar opposite of what we should be doing. Instead of having business be the problem, we have to redefine the nucleus around which business is molded in our world and change business from the problem to the solution. Now, if we want to solve the social issues in our world today, we have to take it one step at a time. That first and most important step is the redefinition of the world of business. Businesses, as of now, are defined and ranked based on their profitability alone. What we have to do is combine profitability and social impact in a matrix. And instead of ranking firms just on their profitability, we have to rank them on a scale of the two. As revolutionary as the idea may sound, the wave has already started. B corporations. What B corporations are corporations that have voluntarily subjected themselves to rigorous guidelines in terms of performance, transparency, and impact on the world around them. What they are, in other words, are the pioneers of a business revolution. The world today, as demonstrated by you being here, is acutely aware of the fact that in the end, social responsibility of businesses is a vital part, and profit is not the only way to go. Inevitably, the world will head in this direction anyway, but these are the pioneers. Ultimately, the longer it takes us to recognize the fundamental importance that are being demonstrated by these B corporations, the longer it'll take us to truly be able to move forward. We're all acutely aware of the social problems we face in today's world, and that in itself is a defining characteristic of our era. What it does is it puts us in a position of power and influence. We've emerged into a time of information, the age of information. We've emerged from the information limbo that plagued past eras, from solving issues and knowing about the issues and putting their minds together towards the common purpose of solving them. We are all acutely aware of the plights of poverty, of lack of education, of malnutrition, of disrespect for human rights. What we have to do is each take our own individual first steps, and as a collective, we will and we can change the world as we know it. Now, before you call me utopian or unrealistic, allow me to share the story of my first step. It still pains me to say today just because of the sheer simplicity of all I had to do to be able to make a change. Now, the reason I didn't do it earlier, and it took me so long to realize, is simply explained by the analogy of getting out of bed in the morning. In the morning, no matter how many times you've gotten up, when you're lying in bed, the mental strength it takes to pull the covers off and actually get out of the bed is always the hardest part. Same scenario here. Last year alone, I spent 16 days otherwise stated as 384 hours or 23,040 minutes on a video game called Call of Duty. Hopefully, given the young demographic here, some people can relate to that. And in retrospect, I have no idea how I actually spent that much time doing the same thing over and over and over and over. Time flies, but the world doesn't wait. No, whoops. Oh no. Okay. Time flies, but the world doesn't wait. That's a realization I came to a little too late, and the reason for the taking of my first step, the admittedly almost whole giving up of video games. Now, I knew that was going to make a change in my life, that something was going to happen, but never in a million years would I have said, if I give up video games in my free time, I will end up not only as the head of my own company, but giving a TED Talk a couple months down the road. So I'm hoping we have a fairly diverse audience, and if anybody can interpret this, can anybody read Arabic? Anybody? Okay, you. Hope. Yes, thank you. Hope is a noun, commonly defined as the hope or desire for something to happen. Hope is the thing that sparks people to keep doing things despite how stacked the odds may be against their favor. Funnily enough, hope is also what sparked me to go on my first entrepreneurial endeavor, Solstice. What this was a simple summer project with a friend, a simple for-profit apparel company. We set it up in the United States, which is where my friend was based. We got our wholesale listings, we got our printers, we got all of our things, we got our website ready, and then we realized we set up a company in the United States which was serving a European audience. Taxes on imports from the United States to Europe, if randomly selected, range from 50 to 200%. We quickly realized that given the fact that we set it up in the United States and we wanted to serve Europe, the logistical possibility of this happening was just about zero. If you didn't catch my technical language, it just didn't work. And then the idea lay to rest for about 2 months, and then I remembered, time flies, but the world doesn't wait. And Hope was born. What Hope is a nonprofit apparel company offering things, namely t-shirts and sweatshirts, and offering our consumers the opportunity to choose one of 3 alternating charities chosen by us based on the world's needs at that given time. On top of that, we've attempted to establish a parallel to TOMS. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of TOMS, what it is when you buy a shoe from their company, they donate that same shoe to a child in need, notably, for the most part, on the African continent. Now, we don't have the same capital as TOMS, because we're not a global corporation just yet, but what we have done is you can match your purchase and pay the wholesale price rather than the retail price, and send off that copy of the same item that you purchased with us on a service trip to South Africa later on this year. Given that we're in our launch phase, we hope to launch our first line this spring before our trip to South Africa. Let's think again. One small step, and my free time went from the ceaseless killing of animated soldiers to making a change in our world today. Now, this is by no means me claiming to be an entrepreneurial genius. Quite the opposite, in fact. That's why I'm here. I realized over the course of the founding of my attempts, first attempt and second successful attempt, that entrepreneurship is actually for everyone. Now, the social perception of entrepreneurship is much like this. It's very difficult to get into, it's very dark, it's very intimidating. But really, this perception is completely unwarranted. The more I think about it, the more similarities I see with economics. Over the past decade or so, especially since the economic collapse, the world has emerged with the concept of active economic citizenship. What I mean by this is people realizing that in fact economics is 95% overcomplexified common sense. People have realized that you don't have to have a major in economics. You don't have to be an expert in the field to be able to chip in your own 2 cents to the economic situations, not only in your community, but in the world. Oh no, my cards are upside down. No. The reality is exactly the opposite. What people have not realized is that the same fundamental principles are applicable for entrepreneurship. Just because it is a 5-syllable word does not necessarily mean the concept it represents is complicated. In reality, the barriers to the entry are like this. If you choose to perceive them as a slide, the slide does exist. If you want it to exist, it will exist. If you want the barriers to entrepreneurship entry to exist, they will exist. The purpose of this talk and what I have done to incorporate and show you that truly entrepreneurship, everything that you need is at your fingertips. The days of having to have a retail location to promote your idea are gone. The days of you needing a lawyer to be able to incorporate your company are gone. Personally, living in one of the most bureaucratic nations on the planet, in Belgium, I have managed so far successfully to move along the steps of incorporating my company. Everything you need is at your fingertips, especially funding. If you don't know what Kickstarter is to crowdfunding what Ford is to the car industry. Since the course of its couple years span, Kickstarter has raised a total of $974 million. As I'm about to show you, that's approximately 19,480,000 times more than you need to get yourself started on your project. For the purpose of demonstrating my point, I've created a time-lapse of me setting up all the fundamental cornerstones to an online upstart. I've created a website, I have created a company email, purchased a domain name, made the website live, which is actually live, by the way, if you want to look it up. It's thefirststep.co, if you guys want to look it up on your phones. I've created a global company checklist in which projects can be shared and things and goals that the company has to accomplish have been shared. And I'd like to ask you, how long do you think this process took? Just generally, like 2 people. Raise your hands. If not, I'll... Yes. A week? One more? All right. So those are the 2 ideas. This process took me a grand total of 52 minutes and 36 seconds. 52 minutes and 36 seconds. And this is with me forgetting which email I set up my email on and having to go back and find it again, and failing to do the CAPTCHAs for my Google account 5 times. This is the logo I came up with for my new company, the first step. Now, if it was fast, it must have been expensive, right? Well, the process of doing what I just said can range anywhere from $20,000 to $20,000, depending on the domain name you choose. This particular example costs $23. So here are a couple examples of the website that I created. This is the home page. This is the about page. So again, if you want to look it up later on, feel free to do so. These are the services that I used, all of which Stripe is a payment medium, Gmail is for the email, Squarespace is the website, GoDaddy is the domain name, and Wunderlist is the checklist. All to demonstrate, if there's one thing I want you to come away with today, it's that if you have an idea, as Bob the Builder says, yes, you can. You can do whatever you've been thinking about starting for the past couple years, for the past week. If this is the reason you came to this conference, whatever it is, do it. I mean, what do you have to lose? 52 minutes, 36 seconds, and $23? Come on. As Obama said, our values today call upon us to care about the lives of people we will never meet. And that's exactly what we plan to do. Thank you very much.